All right, you want to grab a seat?
Thank you.
All right. Man, it is hot out here in Dallas, especially under these lights, and especially talking to a VIP like you. I'm so excited because you guys really are, you heard the story, like you've been exploding over the last couple of years. When did you launch Hari Mari?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. I don't know what we did to deserve all the kind comments and words, and my goodness, thank you. So nice. So there's no short way of telling the story, so I'll just dive in.
We got time.
Okay, perfect. So my husband Jeremy and I are from, camera, okay, perfect. Are from Dallas, born and raised. Had a really cool opportunity back in 2007 to move to Jakarta, Indonesia. And so we did. Sold our cars, put what we owned in storage, and took off. And Jeremy was working on quite a few projects over there. He used to be in a previous lifetime, be a political consultant. And so, obviously a really cool opportunity that we didn't want to forego, so we went. And in addition to working on politics and a presidential campaign, they also produced a documentary film about malnutrition, specifically how it affected kids in Southeast Asia.
Wow.
Sadly, the education just isn't there at that point in time, and this was 10 years ago, on how to feed your children. And I got on the board for the American Women's Association, spent my time helping kids in orphanages in and around Jakarta. And I like to paint a picture because it kind of brings it full circle with our philanthropy, but have you maybe seen the movie Slumdog Millionaire?
Yeah.
It's exactly what Jakarta's like, to a T. And it's not like a destination hotspot. Typically when I'm meeting people, they haven't been. So I like to paint that picture, but families living on less than $1 a day, no access to health care. The poverty was pretty sad. So needless to say, it changed us. We were there for 3 years. Facing that kind of poverty just gives you a lot of perspective, right? So when we moved back in 2010, we wanted to continue to help kids. We wanted to keep it here in the US. There's tons of brands doing great stuff abroad, but there's certainly need here. We learned that pediatric cancer is the most fatal disease of children here in the US, more so than all childhood diseases combined. So we felt like a little bit backwards, obviously, in that we had decided our philanthropy first, but the idea to make a flip-flop came pretty quickly thereafter. We went to St. Bernard Sports, and goodness, it was kind of fun because they ended up being the first store that picked us up once we launched. But we went shopping for flip-flops. We'd worn out the brand that we'd been wearing for years and noticed that literally, Craig, the exact same flip-flops that were hanging on the wall in 2007 were the exact same brands hanging on that same wall in 2010. Maybe different iterations of black and brown, but it was the same status quo in the flip-flop space. And Jeremy was looking for something a little more elevated, a pop of color. What we've learned is that if presented in the right way, guys will wear color, right? That didn't exist for men. It was black and brown, and that was it. And then I personally was just looking for a leather sandal that didn't destroy your feet in the break-in process, right? And believe it or not, that just didn't exist. And so that's kind of when the wheels started clicking and the idea began. So we felt like if we could come to market and focus on all those things that we felt like were missing on the wall, color, comfort, premium, out-of-the-box comfort, and then give back based on our experience abroad, but more so just be different in doing it from Dallas, that we could be onto something. If you look at a lot of our competitors, they're all based out of California. They're all kind of ingrained in the whole surf vibe, which is great. There's certainly a market for that, but back in the 70s and 80s, that's really the only time when you wore flip-flops, right? Was to the beach or to the pool. Things have obviously changed. My goodness, COVID made people go out in public in their pajamas, and that's certainly not going away. So anyway, so fast forward, that's the history behind it. That's the why. That's how it all became to be. So Hari, in the Indonesian language, means of the sun. Mari in Latin means of the sea. So kind of a fun play on words pertaining to flip-flops, allowing us to tie our history and time spent into the name of the brand. So that, as I said, there's no short way of telling that story, but that's the why.
I feel like it could have been longer though. So because if I see, oh wow, I think we could launch a new flip-flop brand. It's not like tomorrow, oh, here's my new flip-flop, it's in stores. Like, what was the next step when you actually want to make a flip-flop?
Great question. We did about 2 years of R&D. It didn't happen overnight. We bought every flip-flop that was on that wall and literally tore it apart, and figured out what we liked, what we didn't like, what we wanted, and more importantly, how we could be better. And it started with, Jeremy also did focus groups. He paid college kids on campuses across Dallas and pizza and beer to come sit down with him and listen to what, as ridiculous as this might sound, listen to what they did and didn't like about flip-flops. And out of that conversation, the one thing that struck him the most was everyone complaining about the toe post, the piece that goes in between your first and second toe. And so a light went off, and he was like, well, I'm going to do something to combat that.
And you're talking about the hard plastic where it'll just rub and make a little blister right there?
Yes. So
that's what I would say.
Yes. So we designed a memory foam toe post and filed a patent for it and actually received it 7 years later. So that was part of the process. But creating color and combining it in a way that would be presentable to guys, and obviously women aren't afraid of color, but so the process of putting it all together was about 2 years until we went to market in March of 2012.
And then the first customer was St. Bernard, the one where
the first retailer.
First retailer.
Yes, that's actually a funny story. I remember it very well. It's March 21st of 2012, and we were excited because we were turning on our website, thinking that we had Thrillist set to feature the brand on our launch day. And so Jeremy woke up at like 4:30 that morning, like bolted to the office and like, you are nuts, thinking our web sales were just going to be insane on the first day. I think we had like 14 total web orders, like probably 9 of those from family. But anyway, so it was an interesting start.
So you started with flip-flops. I know you've expanded, and we're going to get to that in a second. But the Stew crew, actually made a video, and it aired last week, but you expanded on it, of 1,000 things you can do with Hari Mari flip-flops. So why don't we roll that?
Hey, Tom.
I know I'm like 20 minutes late, but dude, check the kicks.
I could think of 1,000 things to do with those bad boys.
Well done, Stew Crew. That is amazing. And well done, Hari Mari. Couldn't have made the video, obviously, without Hari Mari.
I'm impressed. That reel needs to make it into our store. It's pretty awesome.
I think so, too. And, well, that's a great transition, actually. Speaking of store, so you started out just selling it into other people's stores. Talk about this transition to when you finally were like, wait, we should open up our own store.
Well, it was kind of a long transition. So we launched in 2012. By the end of 2012, we probably had about, call it 60 stores selling the brand. And then we had our e-commerce business. And wholesale has been the lion's share of Hari Mari's business over the years until about 2018, until our DTC surpassed our wholesale business. But our offices are over in Deep Ellum, and we also do our fulfillment from there. And customers started, and it was straight up office. There wasn't a store in there. And customers started showing up because they saw the address on the box, curious, like, what's what's this all about? This is a flip-flop brand out of Dallas? Like, so curious, because a lot of people still don't know we're a Dallas brand. And so we basically hired some local artists to paint some cool murals on the wall and threw some flops up. And the amount of traffic we had pre-COVID coming into our office, essentially, over in Deep Ellum was, when we did the math, added up the figures for 19, it was pretty astonishing. So we're like, well, I guess we're opening stores, right? Imagine what we could do in a great location with intent and actually a design aesthetic. It was exciting to think about, given what we could do out of a partial office with zero intent, right? So yeah, it's been exciting, and it was really something. It was fun to look forward to that, especially during COVID, knowing that that was around the corner and it was in the pipeline.
And so retail is a totally new skill set, I would assume.
Yeah.
So how did you go about deciding, what's going to make this store different than every other retail store?
Well, I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't, so I won't. We hired an amazing guy named Jake Zupansky. He's the former co-founder of Billy Reed, and he opened all of their stores. So that was his experience and that he brought to the table. So when we brought him on board in October, it was with the intent of him running the lead and taking charge of the storefront component to our business.
And now you're not, it's not just a cool store, which it is, but you're also doing events and you got pop-up stuff going on. So tell us about that.
Well, we are a flip-flop brand essentially, right? So we got to have fun there. So we have ranch water served, Bloody Marys, parties there. Just try and make it fun, not keep it so serious.
Well, so you mentioned you're a flip-flop brand, but clearly you're expanding. Check this out. So thank you very much. You were very gracious to give David and I brand new boots. And they each have an interesting story, especially this one, with like what it's made out of. Like, tell us about these two first, but then I want to hear the story about how you decided to branch off beyond just flip-flops.
Got it. So my husband is a baseball freak. He grew up always wanting a Nakona baseball glove. And his parents were like, ha ha ha, you can go buy a $35 Rawlings one, because the Nakona gloves are kind of pricey. And so years ago, we were huddling and thinking about what is a cool Texas brand that's known for leather that we could partner with? And he just automatically was like, we're calling Nakona. So we did. He picked up the phone, called their CEO, asked if they were interested in doing a collab, and they said sure. So it started with sandals and flip-flops. We essentially using the glove that they use for the leather that they use for their gloves and putting it on our chassis, so to speak. And it did so well, my goodness. The sales on them have been crazy, but also the press on it. And our customers loved it. So we're like, well, you know what? We're going to close it up, put it in a shoe. And so that's this one. And so this is part of that collab. And you can see the Nakona logo there. But our customers and this is an inline piece from Harimari, but our customers over the years, the feedback generally was, we love your product, and if you make a shoe, we'll buy it. And so we listened. So here we are. We're making shoes and boots, and we've got slippers coming this holiday, which is exciting. Which I think you might be the first person I've told that to, so I've spilt the beans.
All right, breaking news here.
So, yeah.
Now, is it like a baseball glove where I have to rub like shaving cream on it and beat it a little bit before I wear it?
Maybe. I never played baseball.
Well, David,
so I don't know. Is that a thing?
Yeah, you rub shaving cream, you put the baseball in, you wrap rubber bands around it, you let it sit just to, you ask your husband about it.
Okay. I'm sure he knows. I do know that people call in and are like, hey, what oils do you recommend? But I've never heard the shaving cream piece, so that's cool.
Yeah, it's to soften up a new glove.
Okay.
Because you don't want to have the fly ball hit it and you can't close it and it just rolls out. So you got to soften up the glove first.
Okay.
But these shoes, they look so good right now. I don't know if I'd want to soften them up. So.
Well, thanks.
Well, thank you. So why don't we go to, because that was actually, the studio had an award-winning video that was by Joel, and as part of that award was a gift card to go to your retail shop. And so I think we have footage of Joel at the retail shop. Why don't we check it out?
Oh, I can't wait to see this.
Previously on The Rev Show.
Let's make this month's challenge, who can make the best Harimari promo video?
Now within the studio, we have two competing factions.
Team Joel versus Team Stu.
I think the audience gave it to Joel, Sandal, Harimari, flip-flop love story. So one more round of applause for Joel.
So Joel gets a shopping excursion at the Harimari store on Knox Street.
Hey everybody, my name's Joel. I made this video for Harimari for our last Rev show, and I happened to win that wonderful contest, and Harimari gave me a gift card to spend at their store. So today we're going to go to their store on Knox. My shoes are in pretty bad condition, so we're gonna replace those so it all comes at a great time. So come on with us.
I think we got your next product. You gotta get the drum set, the Harimari
Like it.
drum set.
I love it.
I'm not going back to sticks. I'm on flops from here on.
Well, I mean, I just love hearing this story. Thank you so much for coming here. It's I know you guys are on fire. You're exploding, and actually, it's great to hear your direct-to-consumer brand is taking off too. I know you have Elizabeth in the audience who runs your social media. How do people find Harimari? How do they buy it? Tell us everything about it.
Got it. Well, thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed the visit. I love telling our story, so I appreciate it. So you can go to harimari.com or on Instagram, we're at Harimari Shoes. And in addition to that, we have, like as we talked about, a new store on Knox Street here in Dallas, 3213 Knox Street.
Well, I know you are about to hop on a plane to go sell more Harimari
Yes.
to more fine retailers. So Godspeed, and yeah, good luck, and I can't wait to visit the new store.
Thank you so much for having me. Enjoyed it.
All right, thank you, Lila.